I think we can start now. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Very warm welcome to the final day of GNDR's Global Summit for Disaster Risk Reduction 2026. It's my pleasure to have you all join us for this important session on localizing disaster risk governance, strengthening civil society leadership. And it's my privilege to introduce our esteemed moderator, Miss Ina Gasoline Baron. Miss Ina is the lead of the Anticipatory and Humanitarian Action Team of Center for Disaster Preparedness Foundation. She is also the chairperson of the Regional Advisory Group and the representative of the East and Southeast Asia region to the Global Board of GNDR. We are also joined by three distinguished speakers. Our first speaker is Mr. John Peter Amara. So, Mr. John is a development expert for over 20 years of experience. He's a CEO and founder of Economic Justice Network Sierra Leone, founder AYC at Sierra Leone, member and national focal point GNDR network of Civil Society Organization for Disaster Risk Reduction, GNDR, member of the board of director at Guma Valley Water Company and member Global Water Partnership. Our second esteemed speaker is Mr. Emmanuel Teta. Mr. Emmanuel is the country director of uh, Adventist Development and Relief Agency (ADRA) in the Gambia and serves as a national focal point for the Global Network for Civil Society Organization for Disaster Reduction (GNDR). He brings over 15 years of experience in the community development, humanitarian responses, and disaster risk reduction, with a strong track record of working alongside vulnerable communities to build resilience and sustainable livelihood. Our third speaker, who will be joining very soon, hopefully, is Mr. Abdul Mumin Yusuf. Mr. Abdul is a climate resilience and sustainable agriculture practitioner from Ghana. He served as a program manager at United Force for Development International, U4T, and national focal person for GNDR Ghana, promoting community led climate action, disaster risk reduction, clean cooking, and sustainable livelihood. So, we are truly grateful to have such a great panel and accomplished panel with us today. With that, now I would like to invite Ms. Ina to kindly take the floor and lead us through the session. So thank you, and over to you, Ms. Lina.
Thank you, Ajay. Good day, everyone, and welcome to our session on localizing disaster risk governance, strengthening civil society leadership. Today's conversation is about moving beyond commitments and really examining what localization looks like in practice, especially at the local level where risks are experienced and managed every day. Across many contexts, we are seeing progress, but often in partial and uneven ways. Communities are engaged, but not always enabled. Policies exist, but don't always translate into action. So, the question guiding our discussion today is: what does it take to move from participation to real power and leadership for civil society in local disaster risk governance? To explore this, we'll take a slightly different approach. We'll begin with what we are calling dispatches from the field, short, grounded insights from our speakers based on real experiences. These are not presentations, but quick reflections: what's happening on the ground, what's working, what's not, and what we're learning. Because if localization is to be meaningful, it must be grounded in lived realities, not just frameworks. Right? So, to start off with the dispatch, okay, Emmanuel, let me start with you. Could you please share a dispatch from your experience?
All right, thank you so much, Anna. I'll be sharing a dispatch from one of our communities in the Gambia called Kanjabina. So, in the Gambia, fire is one of the most common disasters affecting vulnerable communities alongside flooding. About 5 years ago, more than 15 households, internally displaced people from the North Bank region of the country, resettled in a community called Kanjabina in the western or in the West Coast region of the country. They were allocated farmlands to rebuild their livelihood, and like many low income communities, they constructed their homes using thatch and other highly flammable materials. Less than a year after settling, a fire broke out. It spread rapidly through the closely built houses, destroying over 80% of the homes and wiping out nearly all their belongings. Over time, the community rebuilt, but with limited options and resources. They rebuilt in the same way, using the same touch materials that had made them so vulnerable in the first place. The key challenge we identify in this dispatch story is this. So at first, the solution seems obvious. The solution to this fire disaster in this community was to raise awareness about fire safety and to give life-saving support to affected families. But as we engage more deeply with the community, we discovered something important. People already understood the risk. They know what causes fire and what to do to prevent them. Yet they continue to build in the same way. Why? One may ask. One community member put it in a very simple way. She said, "We know the danger, but this is what we can afford." That statement revealed the real issue. The problem is not knowledge, it is the lack of capacity to act on that knowledge they have received, the lack of means and resources to build differently. When it comes to risk management today, one can say that communities are informed, or most communities are informed, but they are not enabled. And as civil society actors, we often focus on what is easier to deliver, such as trainings and awareness campaigns, while real solutions that address underlying vulnerabilities, like safer housing in the case of our dispatch story today, receive less attention because they require greater investment and long-term commitment. At the same time, funding systems tend to also prioritize visible emergency response over the quieter work of reducing risk before disaster even happens. I'll conclude with an insight from this story. For us, our key insight is that disaster risk reduction must go beyond awareness and to address structural vulnerability. So, like we can see in this dispatch story, if people cannot afford safer building materials, awareness alone will not reduce the risk. For organizations like ADRA, this means shifting our roles. We must not only educate, but also connect communities to resources and advocate for investment that make resilience practical. So, localizing disaster risk governance is not just about giving communities a voice, it is about ensuring their realities shape decisions on resources and solutions. So, in Kanjabina, real resilience will only happen when knowledge is matched with access, when safer housing is not just understood, but actually achievable. Thank you so much. And this is our dispatch story.
Thank you, Emmanuel. I think that really brings out a critical point that the issue is often not awareness, but whether communities have the means and options to act, the access. And this raises a broader question: if communities understand the risks but cannot act, then what role do systems and governance play? Right? Thank you. Now, John, turning to you. John, John, it's time for your dispatch, please. Hello, John. Okay. How about Abdul? We have Abdul here with us.
I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon once again, everyone.
Okay, yes, please proceed, Abdul.
Okay, a minute.
Abdul?
Sorry about that. I'm back.
Yeah, you can go ahead with your dispatch now. Okay. Seems like Abdul has intermittent connection. How about John? Are you ready with your dispatch?
Can you hear me?
Okay, now we can hear you. Yeah, please proceed. Oh yeah, thank you for the heads up. Please, if you have questions regarding the dispatch of Emmanuel, or if you have burning questions or ideas that you would like to share in relation to our uh, topic for this session, please feel free to share them in the chat box. Okay. Okay. Once again, John or Abdul, you're ready. Okay. John. Okay. So while waiting for the others to join us, maybe they're having difficulties with the internet, among all other things that's happening in the world. This conversation, what we're trying to see is, as we've heard also from the sharing of Emmanuel, is that there really is capacity on the ground in the locals and in the civil society, but and we are here to listen to some of the sharing of these experiences from our colleagues here and our fellow members of GNDR. Emmanuel has already made a critical point about the accessibility or the inaccessibility of ways and resources so that communities can act. And Abdul, later on, he will be sharing about his experience from northern Ghana. But what we will be hearing from him would be an example of how communities often understand the risk in much more complex and interconnected ways than external assessments capture. Um, for John, he's not with us yet, but he will be uh, highlighting the gap between policies and how they translate at the local level. So these are some of the things that we would like to discuss in this session, based on their experience and based. Oh, John, are you here now? I've seen a emoji. Oh, okay.
Hello, John. Can you hear us? May you please unmute yourself?
Oh, yes. He raised his hand. Can you please unmute yourself, John? Yeah, yes, just click on the mic icon underneath our, our screens or our faces. Yeah. I don't think we can unmute you. You would have to initiate the action, John.
Mr. John, may you please unmute yourself? Or if you are facing any difficulty, may you please write on the chat?
Yeah, that also works. Okay. While waiting for John to chat, Aji, please let me know if he has a chat. Okay, because
Uh,
it.
I think he's having some problems, so I just request him to rejoin.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay then. Mhm. Okay, so while waiting for the others, um, let me ask Emmanuel here. Emmanuel, from your experience, what does risk informed governance actually look like in practice at the local level?
Okay, so when you talk about risk-informed governance in practice, mostly we see from a national level and from civil society level. I would say risk-informed governance is mostly about information sharing. Okay, so how do we educate people about the dangers of flooding? How do we educate them about the dangers or the mitigation factors on fire and so many other disasters? So we mostly feel that the communities lack information. And so we often take our governance issue on the basis of information, knowledge. But in practical, most of the time, one will ask himself, why are people still exposing themselves to disaster? And it is not basically, or mostly, it is not about just the lack of knowledge or the lack of information, but the crux of the matter is economic. Are they having the means for them to be able to get out from harm's way? Are they able to? Are they having the means for them to be able to remove from themselves from being exposed to disaster? And so I feel that governance issue should. I will not say shift away from information sharing, but at least capacity building should be part of governance when it comes to risk mitigation.
With that, Emmanuel, do you think that there is still much to do and to talk about when it comes to really establishing ways and means how to do prevention and mitigation? I mean, is it, do you see any progress at all in terms of really focusing more and shifting the focus to prevention and mitigation, linking it to development, or are we still in that space of response and really just seeing a micro picture of um, response rather than DRR, and in the context of, in the bigger context of development, or connecting it to development, which would mean risk reduction in that sense?
Yeah, yeah. So in that case, I think you are right. I would say, or I would suggest that civil society organizations, state actors, everyone, we should try to see how best we can shift away from the current trend of DRR, and then also we should try to shift away from the current realities of responding to disaster, to implementing projects. And we need to move towards the shaping of the agendas. For example, how can we shape policies to be able to cater for DRR, to be able to cater for disaster risk reduction in a much more broader sense? But you see, the issue is that most civil society organizations are mostly into project implementations. We are mostly into engaging the community, and we are having less focus on shaping policies and engaging government or national actors on how to look at disaster response in a much more broader way. So I think if we go towards that area, it can help the way disaster risk reduction is implemented.
Yeah, that's a really good thought, Emmanuel, and especially I think that's also if you would agree with me, that is also a challenge with sustainability because CSOs, some of them or some of us are trying also our best to shift to make that shift, right?
Yeah,
To do more on the mitigation and prevention part, and also the advocacy, but there is the gains won't be sustained if we are not all in this as a whole ecosystem, right?
exactly, exactly. Exactly. I think we all need to be engaged. And you see, the issue is that most civil society organizations are having as their goal the sustenance of their offices. How can I keep my office in operation? How can I keep the work in operation? And so most of the time we do things according to the dictates of donors or from where the money is coming from. But I think we should be more focused on how to reduce disaster. But the other reality is that, disaster risk reduction efforts or activities are less founded compared to disaster response. And probably this is the reason why most CSOs are mostly found in disaster response activities than DRL activities.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Emmanuel. Let us entertain some of the questions here. Our audience are reading to participate. So, one question from Mal Reddy: how do we encourage active collaboration in DRR, transcending beyond awareness and information dissemination to a shared approach in DRR, and where civil society is involved in shaping the form, structure, and context of DRR?
You want me to respond to that one now, or we give John a chance to speak before the network goes off?
Oh,
No,
is
just continue. Continue.
oh, or maybe we can. There is a portion here for the audience Q
Yes.
and A. So maybe we can see, and maybe
Yes.
we can
Yes.
also have that
Yes.
answered already with the dispatches. So let's proceed with
Yes.
John first, okay?
Okay.
For our audience. So let's listen to them. Okay, so John, please go ahead with your dispatch.
Yeah, I want to do it in a different form. Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Yeah, I want
Yeah,
to
we
do it
can
in
hear
a
you.
different form. Yes. A good afternoon. From my own point of view, I want to just be a short storytelling with regards to my dispatch. Um, and Sarah in Freetown. Hello? Let
Yes,
me
we can
start with
hear
a
you.
story. Let me just start with a story. In the hillside community in Freetown, a woman called Mariama told us that she will never forget what happened to her. Every time it's raining heavily, she doesn't sleep, not because of the noise, but because she is watching the hills behind her house. She lost a neighbor during the 2017 Freetown landslide. That was the time GNDR was formed in Sierra Leone together with Madam Zainab from ActionAid and Economic Justice Network. So now, when the rain started, she gathered her children, keep a small bag ready, and waiting to run. Now, here is a question. Where is Mariama in our plan? Where is her knowledge in our data? So those were the filling points that GND members in Sierra Leone engage on. Risk-informed governance, because starts with people like Mariama, are not seen in victims, but as experts. Where the soil is weak, where water flows, where danger is coming. From that point, but too often the knowledge is gone. Risk-informed governance means what we plan with her, not for her. So those were the things, because for GNDR members in Sierra Leone, that has been our focus. In the area of where system fails, we believe that many systems would map that areas using satellite images, but Mariam could tell you something that satellite cannot. The water changed directions last year. The difference can cost life. The failure is simple. We trust distance data more than life realities. But from the participation of influence, Mariama has attended community meetings with us before. She has spoken, but nothing changed. That is participation without power. She sits at a local planning committee. Her community mapping informs citizens' decisions. Funding supports her solutions. But that is influence, and that is the shift we need. And that is the shift communities need. If we speak to government, policies strongest when they felt reality. Mariama is not outside the system. She is the system's missing data. Where we don't need more pilots that end, Mariama doesn't live in the pilot project. She lives in risky every day. The question is, are we finding short-term activities or long-term local capacity? That has been the question during our activities. When we speak to NGOs and civil society colleagues, we always say we must ask ourselves honestly, are we amplifying Mariama's voice or speaking on her behalf? When we speak to other audiences, everyone, for example, in this room, how much of that power are we willing to share? Mariama's community once created small drainage channels themselves. It worked because we build their capacities. Because scaling ignored context, scaling should not replace local solutions, it should strengthen them. So what needs to change in this context of my short story, the truth supports resilience in Freetown, we must shift from seeing people as beneficiaries, decision makers, from funding projects, from funding trust, from importing solutions, backing local ones. So next time it's raining season in Freetown, Mariama will sit awake. The question now is, will she still be waiting to run, or will she finally have the power to stay safe? Resilience brings when there is no longer invisible. Silence makes the message land emotional. So from the perspective of Freetown, what we have been doing as GNDR members, because we are always been relying on case studies from in our fields, engaging communities. in Freetown because most of our communities, informal coastals and hillline communities such as Krude, Crabton, Port where flooding and landslides are annually events. These risks are driven by rapid urbanizations, weak drainage systems. So, in line with that, Economic Justice Network Sierra Leone, Think Africa, ICA Sierra Leone, and GNDR members in Sierra Leone, alongside other civil society, using the GNDR participatory approach, such as the views from the front lines methods. We support communities, we have been supporting communities to identify their own risks, mapping hazards, and co-designs our local preparedness plans. This includes setting up communities, alert mechanism, training and volunteers, and facilitating dialogue between communities and local authority so that risk information feeds in district levels plannings we usually some of and our key insights, it requires leadership. When communities are supported to generate and use their own risk data, civil society plays a bridging role between local realities and national systems. Governance becomes more responsive and effective civil society, not just supporting implementations. We have been helping to rebalance powers so that those most at risk are leading their solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, John, for that wonderful and really moving story from Freetown. I think that really completes the picture here, highlighting the gap between policies and their translation at the local level. And underlying all of this is an important reminder that risks are experienced very differently at the community level and are not always fully captured in formal systems. So we're talking about the systems wherein multi stakeholders play a role. It's not just the government, the civil society, but even within the civil society, there are also different layers, different levels, and different working working situation. So now to the audience, what we're seeing here is a kind of chain. Communities understand the risks, but they are not always enabled to act, and systems don't always respond effectively. So, how do we fix this whole chain? Let's build on this. So, John has already shared some of the risk informed governance practices at the local level. But I would like to ask, as we proceed with the moderated discussion here, um, Emmanuel first. I would like to ask, this is the question: what are the key gaps that prevent communities from turning risk awareness into action and from influencing decisions? For you, Emmanuel, particularly on what limits communities from acting?
Yeah, so I will say one of the key gaps has to be, for communities to turn from or to move from having access to information to putting those informations they have got into practice, mostly in the communities that we work with, has to do basically with funding, with the capacity. Do they have the means for them to be able to put those knowledge on the informations they have got into practice? Most of the time we give them a lot of information. You need to do this to prevent that. You need to do A or B to prevent this or that disaster. Most of them, they know. No, because nobody will intentionally put himself in a harm's way. And so the question has been, why are they still in harm's way in the first place? Why are they still exposing themselves to disaster? Yes, to some extent, we can say knowledge or information plays a key part. But to some also, it has to do with the means, the capacity for them to put those informations they have received into action.
Just a follow up question: what do you think with all this? Are we still missing when we look at the risk from the community level? Is there something missing, or you've mentioned about looking at the bigger picture and really putting the capacity to where and it should not be limited to what they should do or the information that they need. But do you think there's still something missing, or what are we still missing when we look at the risk if it's from the perspective of the community?
Okay, there could be so many things missing. AJ, maybe it will, or Ian, it will first depend on the context in which civil societies work, because every context have its own unique characteristics. But I think one of the things in our context that is, or that I can say is missing most of the time is proper engagement of CSOs, and are we being able to make proper influence in policy making? Are we being able to contribute meaningfully into governance? We often see CSOs not very much into governance, and even if you're going to go into governance, it's mostly on a consultation basis. But I think we need to be from the beginning to co-create issues and not just sit down for decisions to be taken and then CSOs are consulted. So we need to be able to influence policies and to be able to get involved in governance issues. I think when we do that, local communities, when it comes to DRL, we can be able to work with them to ensure that their needs are properly catered for.
Thank you for that, Emmanuel. Really putting emphasis on partners engagement, and that if we're looking at holistic partnership and also holistic DRR, we have not just as an organization, but really as a network to
Yeah.
co-create these issues, talk about it, and influence policies with these, and continuously advocate. And here at GNDR, we are in a good position actually to make that happen. But of course, it would need for us to really be engaged in these conversations that's
Yeah.
are sometimes hard to and difficult uh, to think about, but should be talked about. For John, John, same question. Key gaps that prevent communities from turning risk awareness into action and from influencing decisions. Particularly, how does this connect to the gap between policy and local implementation? Because you've mentioned that also in your dispatch.
So let me just go straight to in the area with regards to how civil society can I just say what how civil society influence policy effectively? Let me just
Yep.
focus. Yes. Um, First of all, community knowledge is essential because, like, for example, let me just make a case study like for our areas that are prone areas like residents in Susan's Bay, for example, understand floodings. They understand floodings, patterns, fire risks and responses, strategies. Ignoring this knowledge leads to effective solutions. But coming to influence policy effectively, or what we believe that is the influence is engage in a constructive dialogue with government structures at all levels. We use the evidence base from community work, then building coalitions from stronger advocacy, because that is the pillar of the civil society that influence policy and change. Also align local priorities with national frameworks, like because we have the national frameworks like the disaster agency, we have the EPA environmental protections, we have the councils, etc., etc. But in line with this, the practical aspect of cost solution for with regards to solution is how we can engage the face list of the communities, because without the communities are the pillars of whatever things that civil society wants to do. First of all, our first engagement is the communities. With the strong engagement with the communities, we'll be able to influence policy change and policy effectively. So, one of the key things, like for example, we have been doing in Sierra Leone, like I hope Madam Zainab is listening to me because she has been an expert in DDR issues from Action Aid point of view from the time we formed um, GNDR Sierra Leone. We have been focusing more on communities, relying them on early warning systems, then awareness and preparedness campaigns. This is as a result of the strength and the capacity that we have been building with the structures within the communities. Within the communities, we have vulnerable groups. We have the disabilities in the communities, like the prone disaster areas. We also have the youth, the women. We consider most of them are prone because of people feels in when you are in the communities that when you are in the communities in those abject poverty communities that um, you have been marginalized. So sometimes these are these are the engagements that we have been relying on by making sure that to play for us as a civil society to play a key role in making participations meaningful, not as a symbolic. Because we believe that we don't just design solutions for commitments, we design them with communities because these are the pillars. From the perspective from a GNDR, talking about the views of the front lines, because these are the strengths of the pillars of the disaster of this DDR. Risk informed governance only works when it reflects local realities. Thank you for now.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Um, I think we have already unpacked some of the key challenges here with your dispatches and your answers to the question. We've also turned to what needs to change. So you have proposed some of the changes, and not just in systems but also in funding or approaches. You mentioned engagement with government structures, using evidence based in our CSO work, and aligning local policies to national frameworks, not just in the locals but I think even in the work we do in our own work, right? We should also be adept in what's happening now, how the world is changing, focusing really now on locally led development, and to also leverage views from the front line and all our platforms, because these are also very much important and crucial to the work that we're doing. Okay, thank you so much. Now, let's bring in the audience for a quick reflection. So, let me go back to the chat. Let me. Okay, so. Uh, mhm. What practical. Okay. Oh, let me just read also some of the uh, feedback. Thank you for the key points of discussion, supporting the current trend where the focus is on awareness, addressing the concept of consultation and participation to some extent. Yes. Um, there is a question: what are the most effective ways for civil society to move beyond participation to actually influencing decision making and resource allocation within local disaster risk governance systems? I think there have been some examples that our panel here have also shared from their dispatch and also in their answers to our moderated questions. How do we encourage active collaboration in DRR? Oh, yeah. Transcending beyond awareness and information dissemination. Yes. So, anyone would like to respond to these? There's another one. What practical steps can be taken to empower local communities? Mhm. Yes. So, that has been answered briefly. How can community knowledge be systematically integrated into formal governance processes rather than remaining consultative or project based? So, some of these questions they relate to each other. So, let's see. Let's hear from our two speakers. How or do you want to answer some of these questions or some reflections also?
So yeah, I would like to say something. I think some of the questions I've been asking about some of the effective ways or the most effective ways for civil societies for us to be able to move from risk information to active participation. So I would say most civil society organizations are doing very well, but I wish that most COSOs can do more of advocacy, and I think advocacy work can be able to help shift the system to capacity building for communities, and not just only limiting ourselves to information sharing. Also, I believe partnership is very good. We are in a world where we cannot continue to work in isolation. As CSOs, we need to be able to work together. The more we build partnership among ourselves, the more we can be able to have the bigger voice to advocate and to bring about the necessary change in for our communities. And I think I very much like the concept of GNDR, where civil society organizations from various countries and various fields have been brought together, and we've been learning a lot from one another. So organizations have, as GNDR, which brings together civil society organizations from different world, encourages encourages knowledge sharing among ourselves, and we can be able to learn what is working in other parts of the world and what is not working. So I believe strongly in advocacy and partnership.
Yeah, thank you, Emmanuel. Uh, yeah, that's why we're all here in this global summit, right? So we want to maximize, of course, this our participation here, and in the coming days we can continue our conversations how to strengthen that partnership and advocacy. John, we would like to hear from you thoughts on the questions, but
Yes.
since time
Let me
is
just go. Let me just add to what Tete is saying on the perspective of civil society. I believe that civil society is not just a supporting actor. We are not just a supporting actors. Civil society is the center of shaping governance and resilience, be influencing policies, grassroots knowledge, and ensuring inclusion, because inclusion is very important, just as what Emmanuel was saying. We help to turn resilience from a technical concept into people-centered, local grounded processes. That is where in GNDR comes in, because GNDR build our capacity as CSOs from all quarters of levels. We transform GNDR's perspective into our context in Sierra Leone. That is why we are achieving a civil society platform for GNDRs and other actors. That is why we are even connecting, bringing all key other players like the fire force, the local councils, and other district structures for us to work together. So we are the center of shaping governance and resilience. Thank you.
thank you, John. So now I think we've come to the as we come to a close. I think we have learned so much from Emmanuel and John here. They've made their stake also and mentioned several takeaways. Also, I hope our audience can also um, have also been able to relate and have a takeaway from this discussion. Now, if we step back and reflect on what we've heard today, I think a few key messages stand out as we close. First, we are reminded that risk is deeply local and that communities often understand it in ways that systems do not fully capture. From Emmanuel, we heard that knowledge alone is not enough. Communities may understand the risk, but without the resources and options and leveraging on the network and the partnerships, they cannot act. From John, we see that even where systems exist, there's often a disconnect between policy and practice, with communities not fully included in decision making processes in the government or even in our conversations in the in the ecosystem of DRR workers. So the challenge and opportunity is to connect these pieces to ensure that local knowledge informs designs, communities are enabled to act, and that governance systems are responsive and inclusive, as John mentioned. Ultimately, localization is not just about participation. This is about shifting power, right? Aligning our resources and enabling leadership at the local level. Now, because of course, resilience cannot be delivered. It should not be a technical thing. It has to be built with and led by those most at risk. With that, I think we're on the dot here with the time, Ajay. Thank you very much, everyone, for being part of this session. Thank you to our panel, fellow GNDR members, and everyone who tuned in. See you in the remaining sessions. I think the next one would be a plenary. So this is the last day of our global summit. We have a keynote plenary by Anshu Gupta on the main stage, starting at 9 minutes. So we have a break. Thank you so much, everyone. Emmanuel and John, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
very much. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.